Dr. Nikonov, there has been a long-term history of cooperation between Russia and Scotland, starting from the times of Peter the Great. What do you think about the present state of the Scottish-Russian relationship, and what do you think about its future?
Russian-Scotland relations actually started before Peter the Great first arrived to this country. Look at the flags, flag of Scotland and flag of the Russian Navy. That is the same St. Andrew's flag. We have a common saint who visited Russia, preaching the teaching of the Christ, and considered to be the most important saint in our country, as well as in Scotland. So this symbolic thing, I think, is also quite important. And of course, Peter the Great, when he visited Western Europe, he was impressed by what he could see in the British Isles, in the Netherlands, and he tried to bring as much as he could to Russia from what was then the most civilized part of the world. And that's how he managed to modernize Russia, which was one of the most successful, actually, attempts to make Russia a modern state and turn it into a superpower of Eastern Europe. So that contributed, of course, this Scottish-Russian relationship contributed to the modernization of Russia, which I think is important these days. Russia is very much interested in scientific, scholarly, medical cooperation with the most advanced centers in the world, including, of course, the University of Edinburgh. 18th century Russia and Scotland were quite close together at the level of the elites. When Princess Dashkova was here, her son was here, and they contributed a lot to the cooperation between the intellectuals of the time. But there were also common people, mostly from Scotland, coming to Russia, attracted by the proposals of Catherine the Great to develop the Russian Empire, and that's what they did. Russia and Scotland were together in the two major wars of the 20th century, World War I and World War II. We were allies against the powers of the Trilateral Alliance in the First World War and against the Nazi Alliance in the Second World War. We treasure the support from the United Kingdom and Scotland during those wars when Russia was getting a lot of military equipment. And we really treasure the cooperation of the armies, of the commanders, which managed to defeat the most dangerous aggressors in the history of humankind. Unfortunately, our countries were at the different sides of the barricades, as we say, during the Cold War. Now when the Cold War is over, there is a possibility for much more fruitful cooperation between Russia and Scotland based on the historic heritage we have.
Princess Dashkova, let's go back to Princess Dashkova and her role. She, of course, was the key figure that connected the Russian and Scottish Enlightenment and the Russian-Scottish Academia, being the head of the two academies in Russia, the Academy of Sciences and the Academy of the Russian Language. So what do you think that would be the role of the center named after Princess Dashkova to continue this tradition?
Princess Dashkova is a figure very well known in Russia. She was a person very close to Catherine the Great. At some time she was considered to be the closest person to Catherine the Great, who had also a very broad spectrum of interests. She was one of the most enlightened persons of the time, very much interested in scholarly cooperation between different states and bringing knowledge to Russia. It is really intriguing why going to Western Europe, trying to learn as much as possible about the then contemporary science, she preferred to go to Scotland. There were many other scientific centers in Germany, in France, in England, but she came here. And that means that she really thought that Edinburgh was the scientific capital of the time, where many important scholars were working. She was friendly with many of them, including Adam Smith, who was probably the most important economist of that time, or maybe of all times. And she brought her son here to study, and she at least started this direct scholarly exchanges, bringing also people from Western Europe to Russia, especially when she became the president of the Russian Academy of Sciences, and then the president of the Russian Academy of Russian Language, which was started by her. And of course, a center named after Dashkova in the University of Edinburgh is something very logical, and something which can contribute to strengthening ties between Russia and Scotland, Russia and the United Kingdom, which I think we need these days. After the Cold War, we had some period when Russia and the UK regarded themselves as very friendly nations. Then something changed a little bit. Now, with the new conservative government in London, the ties are strengthening again, and we hope that can continue. And of course, there are many human links between Russia and this country. There are many Russians living in the United Kingdom, many Russians visiting, coming as tourists. And Russia is becoming one of the rising centers of power, one of the rising economies, which plays quite a significant role in today's world. And so Russian studies is something which is on the rise in today's world. It was not the case in the 90s, after the collapse of the Soviet Union, when Russia was falling apart, and people in many countries were losing interest in Russia and thought it was hopeless. Now it is not. Now, despite of the crisis, Russia is moving forward. It is one of the so-called BRIC countries, which are the fastest growing economies on earth, a big market, the major source of energy, one of the great nations represented in this United Nations Security Council, and Russian language is one of the 6 official languages on earth. So this is a field to be developed in today's world, and we are happy that we can contribute a little bit to the development of Russian studies in Scotland.
The University of Edinburgh is one of the leading research centres in the UK, a research intensive university, and the research into the Russian language is one of the strengths of Edinburgh University. We have the highest number of postgraduate students who would like to do research in the fields of the Russian language. So what research areas and research fields would the Ruski Mir Foundation like to support?
First, it's very well known that the University of Edinburgh is the major center for Russian studies, Russian language training in the UK, and it's not by chance that the second center of that type in the UK is opened in Edinburgh. The first one was started a year ago in the Pushkin House in London, which is a center of Russian culture in the capital of the UK. I'd like also to say that Ruski Mir Foundation is not determining the areas of training or research conducted in the centers it supports. Those are the centers not belonging to the foundation, they belong to the universities. And of course the universities know better what areas are of utmost importance to the students, to the professors, and to the field they study. So we are ready to support whatever areas are there. This center is actually a space which can be used for different purposes. It can be used as a classroom, it can be used as a conference room, it can be used as a movie, it can be used as a class of history, a class of math. There are good Russian mathematicians who can come and speak Russian. That can be a class to meet painters. So it can be used in different ways, and these centers are used in different ways in different countries. So it's up to the University of Edinburgh actually to set the priorities.
You're giving the Ericksons lecture today, and of course Ericsson is another key figure that connects Russia and Scotland. He was a very famous military historian who worked at Edinburgh University, and perhaps he was one of the people who did contribute to the end of the Cold War in many ways. So how do you feel giving this very prestigious Ericksons lecture at Edinburgh University, and what would be your key message in this lecture?
I feel very honored to deliver this lecture. Professor Ericsson is really well known as a military historian and as a person who really felt responsible for what's going on in the world. When I was told that I am to deliver this lecture, I was asked to provide a topic. And I provided a list of topics I would like to talk. And actually the one chosen by the university was how the crisis changed the world. And really the recent economic financial crisis brought quite serious changes in the global architecture. What is, I think, the most important development, that the world moved in the direction of multipolarity, into the direction of different countries, different civilizations playing greater role on the world scene. And that actually that brings us to the situation when a sort of concert, not just of great powers, but also concert of civilizations is probably more possible, which brings us somewhat further away from the situation of conflict of civilization, which was prescribed by some serious scholars like Samuel Huntington.
And the final question, what would you wish to Princess Dashkova Center on its official birthday?
I wish, first of all, that Princess Dashkova Center will always be crowded, that as many students come there as possible, that professors regard it as the meeting place. I wish more Russians coming there, speaking about our country, or Russians living abroad, speaking about their vision of the world. Today, Russians are everywhere. There are more people speaking Russian outside Russia than inside Russia. And this is a whole world which we call Ruski Mir. Mir in Russian has several meanings. One is the world, two, it's peace, three, it is a community. And so Ruski Mir is to bring together a huge universe who is interested in Russia, who is speaking Russia, to live in peace and live like a good community.
Dr. Nikonov, I would like to say thank you very much for your wonderful interview.
Thank you, my pleasure.
This production is copyright the University of Edinburgh.